This was described as a landmark case, drawing media attention across the world. Heidi Crowter, a 26-year-old woman living with Down syndrome, in a legal battle with the UK government arguing her country's abortion stance discriminates against her. But after years of campaigning, Heidi's case was dismissed last Thursday. It wasn't the news she hoped for, but vowed to keep fighting.
We face discrimination every day in schools, in the workplace and in the society. Thanks to the verdict, the judges have upheld discrimination in the womb too.
Lynn Murray was outside the High Court in London that day.
We were upset. We were upset, but I think we had prepared ourselves for both things happening, you know.
She's been campaigning for Down syndrome equality since the birth of her daughter Rachel.
She was the best baby out of all my children. And I remember my sort of initial thoughts were, what's going to happen to her when she's older? And then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, what's going to happen to any of my children when they're older? I did worry about, I suppose, telling people and being faced with other people's reactions to the news, and I think that is what we want to change, and we want more people to understand what it is like to have a child with Down syndrome, for instance.
Why do you feel it necessary for a change in the law?
When this law was passed, it was a time when we thought it was better for people with disability not to be born. We've moved a long way away from that now, and we realise that a life with disability is just as good as another life.
The ruling itself says there's an increased risk of stillbirth for babies with Down syndrome and that they might not live long into childhood. So could you understand why some women would want to avoid this statistic?
I think what we need to be doing is we need to be better at supporting people. If we have detectable conditions, you know, this should be leading to cures for some things and better treatments and actually better outcomes. You know, why are we screening? Are we screening in order to improve these situations, or are we screening in order to screen people out? This is an issue that we see as discrimination as affecting a group of people. You know, it's not about restricting people's rights. It's just about trying to make life better for these other people and for their families, for the community.
The current Abortion Act doesn't specify what conditions justify termination beyond 24 weeks. Each case is considered by medics on an individual basis, but Down syndrome is generally included as one of them. Last week's ruling found the legislation is not unlawful and aims to strike a balance between the interests of the fetus and the rights of women. The judges said the evidence they heard powerfully showed that while some families positively wish to have a child, even if it will be born with severe disabilities, not every family will react in that way.
Support groups for parents of children with Down syndrome are vital in many ways, and over the pandemic many had to move online, but this Paisley group have agreed to meet for the first time in person for 18 months for us. It'll be interesting to see what they make of the ruling last week. Hello. Hi everyone, how you doing? Hiya. Hello. This time last week when the ruling decision came through, how did you feel?
I cried. I was very, very upset by it, just because it's a direct slight on my daughter, you know, and that is very difficult to take.
We couldn't have made that decision about our other child, you know. So what does that say? That says that the law and that, you know, the powers that be see her life as worth less than as my son, who, you know, just happens to not have that extra chromosome.
Julie, what do you think about the current abortion law?
I think it discriminates not only against my daughter, but a number of other children with disabilities that aren't life-threatening. You know, my daughter's got a very fulfilled and happy life, and there's other people I know with other conditions who are encompassed within that law.
My daughter was born at 37 weeks and thought that I could have terminated her, but it's just, I mean, she was perfect when she came, so it's quite horrible to think of.
Down syndrome is just one condition that constitutes for abortion up till birth, but is there any conditions or any exceptions that you could see that might merit abortion up till birth?
Oh, definitely. If it's something that's going to be really hard on the baby, if it's a life-limiting condition or something where the baby's in pain, or if it's a dangerous pregnancy for the mother, there's so many different reasons, but I just don't see Down syndrome being one of them. Times have changed so much since this law was made. Our children are thriving.
I think Heidi's case opens the door for a claimant to come forward here.
I think Heidi's leading the way for a lot more of these cases to maybe start coming forward.
So someone here would come forward as a claimant?
It's something that we would certainly, that any one of the parents that I know would take it on.
I'd love there to be a case in Scotland, and I think, you know, that maybe will happen. I hope it does.
All it needs is a complainer. Would you be a complainer?
I think there are a lot of us here that would be complainers. There's a whole community that would be complainers.
Removing Section 11D altogether would be challenging.
Adeline Wilson is an abortion law expert at Aberdeen University. She says the current law has prevailed under similar scrutiny before.
A previous case in Northern Ireland found that without an equivalent, the law hadn't gone far enough to protect the woman in an instance where there had been a fatal fetal abnormality with the pregnancy and she had had to carry the infant through to term or miscarriage.
There seems to be an appetite for a clearer definition of what conditions constitute abortion up until birth. Do you think the law would benefit from one?
Well, Westminster Parliament has previously considered that as a possibility, but decided not to implement that after taking evidence from the professional medical associations. And there are three reasons why they would normally advise against that. The first is that no fixed list is going to be able to take account of the varying seriousness of some conditions. The second issue is that a fixed list of conditions is going to be very quickly out of date. And the third issue is that a fixed list is not going to be able to take account of the specific circumstances of that pregnancy, that woman and that family. And that makes it a very sensitive issue that people feel very strongly about and isn't one that's going to be easily solved.
But for some people living with Down syndrome, it's an issue worth exploring.
That's from Back to Story.
So did you get that through your work?
Yes, I did.
Sam Ross is 33. She's worked the same job as a cleaner for 13 years and has won numerous awards for her mission in raising Down's awareness.
How does the decision at the High Court in London last week make you feel?
I find it disgusting. It's wrong. I mean, I feel angry, I feel hurt, and it's a betrayal as well. I think it's discrimination. Because we've got a chance to live our lives. We should be equal. I wouldn't want to be anything else.
It's part of who you are.
It's part of who I am, and I'm proud to be it.